Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted Coding. Today, we are going to be working on a project that really comes from actual work that I do. Believe it or not, I don't play with code all day. I have an actual day job. And yet, I'm still thinking about how you can build something to help my day. And so the problem I'm running into is actually interacting with files on my computer, on my desktop. There's just lots and lots and lots of files, and specifically lots of PDF files. So what I'm hoping to do is just lay out the bare bones of a web application to interact with those. That means there doesn't have to be any sort of infrastructure or any sort of back end. What it's doing is it's just going to run locally on my work computer. It's just going to use HTML and hopefully be able to help me organize some of those files. So, just to kind of put it into context, what I did was downloaded a bunch of government forms. This is the Supreme Court civil rules forms. I just picked a handful of them. And you can see that, of course, they're terribly named. They just give you the form number, no context or anything. But really what I want to do is see if there is a way for me to build a web page where I can see the PDF right on the page. So what that means is I opened up the HTML file. It's blank. Obviously, it shows nothing. But what I'm hoping to see is be able to click, say, one of them. What is it? Form 33, Form 15, and 32. So let's say I see 15 and 32 over here in the corner. I can click one and it would preview or let me see the PDF right on the page. I'm pretty sure that's possible. The other thing I want to do is actually be able to manipulate the document. That I'm less certain. I don't think an HTML file is able to interact with local files so that I can, say, move it into a subfolder. So if I have a folder called PDFs, and I might have another folder in there that says 2020, and we'll just move a bunch. Cut and we'll paste. Good. So there's some sort of file structure. Let's move one of them into 2020 as well. So ideally, I'd be able to build something where I can move, 15.pdf into the PDF folder, move it into the root, wherever it may be, copy, paste, delete. I just don't think that's possible, but who knows? There might be some weird JavaScript library, or you might have to grant certain permissions to do it. That will be a challenge. What I'm thinking is actually just keeping some sort of structure. So they can be wherever. I gather all the files, and then I can create like a pseudo folder structure here. So they can be wherever they want inside that one folder, but here I can keep it organized. I can tag them, I can write descriptions, I can give them proper names, whatever helps my organization. But job number one is going to be whether to actually preview the PDF first. So I don't know how to do that, but I'm almost certain there's some sort of JavaScript library that we can use. The next thing we're going to search up is whether we can manipulate, files in your operating system. That is, I don't know. I'm starting to think there might be something like that now. And then finally, depending on how time goes, we'll talk about whether we can create some very rudimentary organization system. So let's get started. Okay, so you saw me fiddle around a bit. The very strange thing, and that I would normally try and figure out is, as soon as I put this preview, hold on, let's go all the way back first. Number one, we are able to very easily put a PDF on a web page. Makes sense in hindsight. Virtually all modern browsers have their built-in PDF readers. So I'm still using this quick JavaScript library, but basically all it's doing is saying create an object and embed it into the page. Let the web browser handle all of this. And I think they have an example of, well, what do I want to say here? It looks a bit different in every different web browser, is what I wanted to say. But it's fine as long as we know that it takes up this space, and we know where it is, and we know that it works. I don't really care what kind of tools are in here. In fact, it might be very nice for us to be able to mark up this page and save it and do various things with it. Now we can do this all HTML. You don't even need this library, but what's useful is that they make it really easy for you to embed. And since I'm going to be pulling off and putting on new PDFs constantly, because depending on which file you click, I think it just seems very easy and simple to use this one command instead. Now, the really interesting thing is our next step. It seems like you can actually use the web browser to manipulate files on your computer. Now, naturally, the people pointed out this is a huge security problem, so you need a really old Internet Explorer version to do it. You use ActiveX, and you can see the code is straightforward. You get the file located at this location, and then you can use that file and move it to a different location. Very simple. I'm sure there are commands for you to rename, delete, copy, all these standard file handling operations. But the problem is, of course, ActiveX. You can use a really old Internet Explorer, or alternatively, you can enable it in Chrome. It sounds like, I haven't gone into detail, but it sounds like you would install some sort of plugin to override your security settings. That's a terrible idea. And so I think I'm going to go back to plan A, which is to keep track of it internally. If I wanted to build this on my own for some sort of limited system, I think I might be willing to stomach that. I am the person using it. I'm the person writing code for it. It's fine, but you don't want to open yourself up to that, especially since I'm doing this as a experiment, thinking about how I would do this at work. And in theory, I may bring this into the workplace, and you don't want to build that on unsecure type of code. So going back to the original idea, the plan is to just keep the files where they are and have them all in one place, but keep track of them. Just given how Windows or any file browser works, you know that all of these paths are unique, so there's not going to be a different 15.pdf in the 2020 folder. So using the path to the file and the file name, you can have unique keys. And what I plan to do is just create a JSON file here that keeps track of it. Here, you use the path as the key, and then you can store a new path. You can store a new name. You can store descriptions, notes, anything else you want to. And the idea is when you move between folders or do any of this restructuring, all you'll be doing is manipulating that JSON file rather than rather than moving the files in your file browser. So you're just changing the internal tracking system. I think that's great. There's probably good reasons to keep original file names, leave it untouched. Just use it as a tool for yourself anyway. So I'm gonna go with that approach, and we'll see how it looks. I don't think this is a difficult task, but it's gonna be a bit tedious. So I'm gonna take a break and tackle this later. So see you soon. Okay, so I struggled back and forth, and actually something I learned now is that it's not so easy to I can't just create a JSON file here and access it, which in hindsight totally makes sense. It's the same problem. You can't just start accessing files on your computer with your web browser, even if it's in the same folder, even if it's a JSON file. So, it turns out, of course, there are lots of ways to store data. The web browser can create a local storage object, and that's where I'm putting the JSON file, well, JSON string, and retrieving it. So you'll see the code here. We've created, a dictionary. We try and retrieve the object. If not, well, if it's successful, then we parse it and use that going forward. But if not, then we use this one, and then afterwards we click the save button, and it'll put it into our local storage. Now, I am realizing that this is not really suitable for my work, because that means everybody has their own local storage, and you can all create all sorts of messes with that. I don't think that is the ideal way of doing it. There's all sorts of little hacky solutions you can have. You can maybe spit it out as a string, save it for your next session. What the most likely and best solution, I think, is actually to have a backend. So store that file in the cloud, use an API, something like that to keep track of all of it. But because it's not working as it should, I'm not gonna go complete this project. But I'll show you what I've done so far and kind of what was in the back of my mind. Of course, we want to be able to have we have these unique file names that hasn't changed. The files are to stay the same place, but you can manipulate the path to start moving things around. So if I hated these folder names, I can just create brand new folder names. It doesn't move the files, but it'll just manipulate this path name so that 15.pdf will be in folder, government forms, from BC, from the court system, whatever the various files are, and all I have to do is change this path to move it along. Of course, all of this is changeable. You can change the name. What I really wanted was to be able to attach a description or notes to it. So, for example, I might have Form 15, and I might have a bit of a note to say, this is, we filled one out a couple weeks ago, and it's in the mail, or something like that. And you can manipulate this very easily, all just by using, plain JavaScript and going into it saying file data, this PDF path is going to be equal to something new. So it's very simple. You just have to manipulate it back and forth. What I was thinking is I can use something like a sortable, like jQuery sortable, so that we can move these around. The other thing I might have is like order. And it could be 1 as suggested. And these next ones can be 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can move them around so that, the order of the PDFs are different. And then maybe you can click into one of them and start editing the data, whether it's a description, the path, the name, any other fields you might want to create. So this is why there's all this space here. You can create a form. You can put this in a sortable to move up and down, and then every time you click it, you get like a form down here. What's really interesting and what's eye-opening for me is this PDF thing, and I think that's going to be really, really, really useful later on. You can click into each PDF and get the document. Of course, these are government forms. They want you to use Adobe Reader. Creates all sorts of problems. That's really annoying. But you get the point. Each one is an on-click. You probably don't see that very well at all. Each one has an on-click method that changes the PDF. That's where I use this PDF object embed, and you just take the path, and then you switch whatever is in this embed item. What I found really, really frustrating is that these embed objects just don't jive well with Bootstrap 5. They have this embed responsive item class, but I had to manually put in a height. I think it's because I'm using a flexbox here, and for some reason it's just not working like it should. Of course, we have a working mechanism now to make it work. With that, we have the 2 columns, and then we click and it replaces each one. Note, of course, that if you use Mozilla, if you use something else, you're going to have a slightly different toolbar up here. So that is basically the plan there. If I wanted to continue this project, these wouldn't be buttons. These would be in some sort of sortable, and not just in one kind of sortable, but one that's tiered so that you have different folders. I don't know how the best way to do that would be, but you can imagine what it would look like, and then of course the form. none of that should be very hard. So I will be putting this up on GitHub. It's not very many lines of code. Um, but I may pick this up in the future. I think it's useful. I just haven't this hasn't turned out the way I wanted. And frankly, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, do I want just an actual desktop application? And maybe we can use Flutter, maybe we can use something else instead to do this. So yeah, or maybe even using Python and some GUI, some GUI application. Yeah, we'll see. But the web thing didn't quite pan out, and that's disappointing. So, if you want to extend this, be my guest. I think there are lots of ways to overcome this, and if you're not looking for that very exact reason I wanted to build this for, I this is a very viable method of going about it. So, that's it. If you found this helpful, do thumbs up, do comment. If not, also comment. It's always helpful. Yeah, I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks.